Okay, good morning, everybody. Um, my name is Chris Linzell. I work for Aruba Networks in the UK, looking after their cloud business solutions. What I'm here today to talk to you about is where we're going with Aruba Central. So Aruba Central's been around for about 10 years now. It's originally developed to manage our instant access point solutions. And then we developed the Edge Services Platform Architecture. We basically added in support to cover all our switching, SD branch gateways, etc. So basically Aruba Central now manages the entire Aruba portfolio. But technology moves on, and we're in the process of rewriting Central from the ground up, putting a very intuitive and interesting new user interface on it, leveraging AI to even further levels, and also updating it to support the latest and greatest sort of web architectures in the back end. Aruba Central sits in the cloud, and and takes telemetry from all the Aruba devices on the network, whether that be your AP switches, SD branch gateways, or AOS 10 gateways. And that gives us a huge amount of telemetry and data in order to help monitor, troubleshoot, and manage your network. But because we've been around for 10 years, we've got a massive installed base of customer networks being run and managed by by Aruba Central, and that gives us a very large and rich data lake. So everything you read about AI and machine learning in the press, it's all about the quality of the data. And from an industry perspective, Aruba have the largest and richest data lake for our AI and data scientists to work on and deliver AI as a way of helping resolve day-to-day issues and optimize your network. So that's why we're leaders in this in the industry. And what we're doing with what we call next gen Aruba Central or new Central, those terms are used interchangeably. There's two driving forces behind it. One is the fact we're already using AI, machine learning, in classic Central, as you know and love it today, with it bringing insights to you. But what we're doing is taking that to the next level in next Gen Central, using AI and machine learning wherever possible to help pinpoint the cause of issues, help you resolve those issues, and also help you optimize and secure your network. So it's AI powered. And the other piece we've done is spend a lot of time talking to Aruba Central customers about what they like, what frustrates them about Central today, and general network operators about how they approach monitoring and troubleshooting and configuring their network. So we're taking that on board. So the two driving things behind it is making it AI powered and operator centric. Now, Aruba Central, as I say, isn't just a new user interface. We're re-architecting it behind the scenes to use the latest and greatest from a web technology perspective as well. And what we're now doing is we're making that available to customers in what we call public preview. So if you're using Central today, some of you may already be seeing a button in the top right hand corner. If you're not and you're interested in getting one activated, talk to your partner business manager and we can get that enabled. But basically by toggling this switch button at the top right, the slider, you can switch between what we know as classic Central and new Central, and we can switch backwards and forwards. And where we are today on this journey, it's very rich from a monitoring, troubleshooting, and reporting perspective. The configuration management side of it's still being developed. But from a day-to-day monitoring and troubleshooting, there's a huge amount of value to be got from accessing the new Central dashboard. So when you log into Central and you switch to the new dashboard, you have this network operations dashboard. So basically,
Chris.
Yeah.
Sorry, we've got a few messages in. We can just see the title slide of your screen, of your slides, but we've not been able to see any. Are you moving through the slides?
Yeah, I am
now, but we can still just see the cover.
Okay, let me stop sharing and try again. Hang on.
Thank you.
And that wasn't what we wanted to do. Let me try sharing it again. Okay. Share. Right, so this is the slide I'm on. You can see that. Right now, let me I go into slide presentation mode. I'm now changing to another slide. Does it change?
No.
Hmm.
No.
Okay.
We'll just do it
Right.
manually.
Let's just go through it. If I do it in this mode, not ideal, but in the interest of hang on. Strange that it's not yeah. Okay. If I page down like this, can people see it? Is that changing?
Yes, that's better. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it doesn't seem to like slide presentation mode for some reason for me today. Okay. Strange. Okay. Luckily, there's not too many builds in this, so we can talk to it as we go through. So for those of you that just so that you basically there's a slider in the top right that switches between the classic central and the new central. When you switch into new central, this is the view you get. You've got this dashboard with tiles. The tiles basically are customizable, so you can choose what tiles are available to show the information that's important to you. And you can navigate from this to monitor and troubleshoot the different sites that you want to monitor and troubleshoot. And down the left-hand side is a bit difficult to see, but there's a list of the sites, and the sites with the most significant issues bubbles to the top. So it draws your attention to which sites have got the challenges that you need to be looking at. There's also some very innovative way of doing navigation through classic or through new central. So we've got something called the solar system view. So here basically you can when you select a site, the site becomes the center of the solar system there, and around the edge of that you get the planets, and those planets are providing information and are also navigational. So here you can see the number of clients are on site, what status they are, etc. And if you click on a planet, for this case I've clicked on the client planet, then it's gone to the client view. So it's now listing all the clients that you can see. So it's navigational and informational. And that's a very simple but powerful way of doing navigation in the new model. We've also got something called time travel, which our customers that are using this love today. So time travel lets you go back in time to a 1 minute increment of time in the last 7 days. So if someone says, on Monday morning or Monday afternoon at 3, I was having this particular problem, you can go back to that particular point in time, and everything that you're looking at in Central is as though you were sitting in front of Central at that point of time. So really, really powerful troubleshooting capabilities. We still keep the data for the full 90 days that you used to with Central today, but the time travel to that minute increment of time goes back 7 days, really powerful. The way we're using AI in the new Central is you're used to insights in classic Central. We're taking that to the next level and providing a load more insights. We're also using it in alerts, and there's two distinctions here. Insights are really where we look at data over a period of time and come up with recommendations for how to improve the performance of your network, how to improve the security of your network, for example. So stuff that you can do when you've got time to improve your network performance and security, for example. Whereas alerts, what we're doing is in near real time, we're using AI and machine learning to sort of do root cause analysis, avoid alert overload, etc., to pinpoint issues that are happening at the moment that need your urgent attention. And they're the two sort of ways that we're using AI and machine learning in Central today, or in New Central. So if we have a look at the insights, for example, actually, maybe the thing to do is just switch between presentation mode. So insights today, in this in New Central, we've got like 30 plus insights. When an insight appears, you can see the insights for your whole network or an individual site. And when you drill into an insight, it will then tell you a lot of detail about that particular, what you need to do. So for this case, this is an insight telling you how to optimize your 5 gigahertz radio performance. So it's not just telling you the fact that you can improve it, it's giving you exact configuration change recommendations in order to make that improvement. Now today, we're obviously saying, yeah, these are the configuration changes you need to make. But in the new version, once we've got the configuration piece done, there'll be a button there to say, yeah, make these changes for me if you're happy to. So we've got insights that will enable about improving WPA3, or whether it's you can enable WPA3, for example, on your network. We look at all the clients that are connected to the network over time and whether we know those particular clients with that particular driver type have WPA issues, etc. So very, very clever, the sort of insights that we can do around recommendations. We're also doing we're also using AI and machine learning to really drill down and do what we call multi-factor correlation. So looking at all the things that are occurring that are going to be the cause of an issue on the network. So in this case, this client's having a poor experience because there's a VLAN configuration issue, for example. So we're looking at what the cause of those issues are. If we look at alerts, for example, I'll just put this into full screen mode so it's easier to see. Again, we're doing an event correlation and using machine learning with alerts to reduce that alert overload and fatigue you've got. So if you can see this, you can see some of these alerts have happened thousands of times, but there's only one alert in the alert log. So we're really, and you can, when you drill into that alert, you can then see how many times that's happened and what the cause of it is and what the remediation recommendations are. So if we have a look at this one, you can see that this particular DNS issue, there's a problem with DNS not responding in a timely manner. We can see how many devices and clients are impacted. You can see the actions, the cause and the actions, and even down the bottom there, you can see from a troubleshooting perspective, we've already automatically pinged the DNS server to check it's responding. So we knew the DNS server is up and we can talk to it, but then that sort of it's doing part of your diagnostics that you would have done manually. It's all done automatically for you and intelligently. There's also a really innovative way that we're doing topology. So we've got something called the sunburst view in topology, which is a really cool way of doing topology. There'll still be the traditional sort of video type diagram, but this is a really interesting, innovative way to view campus-based topologies in a highly scalable way within New Central. We're using large language models to the next level. So Classic Central today's already got natural language processing. So in the search bar at the top, you can ask it questions and like, do I have any DNS issues, find clients, etc. And we use large language models to process that with natural language processing. With New Central, we'll be doing even more of that, making it even easier to use via natural language interactions, and with bots, having a chat box, etc., is something that's going to be coming as well. We're also leveraging the UXI data as well. So if you've got user experience insight sensors deployed in the New Central world on your network, we're putting that same data into the data lake, and so that you don't just have Central and the traditional network telemetry, you've also got that synthetic transactional monitoring from UXI in the data lake, so that through the Aruba Central user interface, you can see application performance that you're getting from what we're doing from monitoring the network using our deep packet inspection that we've got on our AP switches and gateways, but also from UXI as well. So aggregating all that data together. We're also doing a lot of work with securing IoT as well in New Central. So as you saw from the earlier slides, over the 10 years, we've had billions of endpoints connect to our network. So Aruba Central accurately fingerprints everything that's connected to your network. And that allows us with our huge database of endpoints to be very accurate in the way that we identify clients being connected to the network. But we're also looking at the behavior of those clients. So for example, in a retail outfit, if you go to a retail store, sometimes there's a iPad on the checkout that's being used as a point of sale device. So initially we'll discover that as an iPad because that, that static fingerprinting technology will do that. But over time, we look at the behavior of that and we know that that actually isn't an iPad being used in a traditional way. It's actually an IoT device. And so we can clarify it more accurately for looking at the behavior of it. And that then means that we can do some very clever stuff. So we can also look at the behavior of clients and devices. Let me move this because it makes it easier to understand what we're talking about. So we'll also look at the applications that clients and devices are using on the network. So for example, in this example, we're looking at the behavior of cameras that are connected to the network. So over a period of time, we'll baseline the behavior and say, look, these cameras are only talking to these servers running these applications. Do you want us to generate a policy that will automatically lock those devices down to just allow them to do that? So really helping to secure the network in an automated way. We can also look at anomalies, what we call anomaly detection. So we can also look at the behavior of devices over time. And if they start uploading and downloading more data than normal, or start talking to different websites that we're not used to them talking to, we can take actions on that in an automated way. And last but not least, I wanted to talk about what we're doing from a configuration management point. So Aruba Central today does configuration management based on a group. So devices within a group get the configuration that you've defined for that group. But with New Central, we're adopting hierarchical configuration. So you're familiar with the way that we can do configuration with the AOS 8 mobility conductor architecture. We can now do that with Aruba Central. So you can have configuration at a global level, a site collection level, a site level, and a device level. So it lets you have hierarchical configuration. Really, really powerful and very, very scalable. And we're also changing behind the scenes the way that we're doing configuration. So we're abstracting the way we're doing configuration. So we're using Yang models behind the scenes. So Yang basically is a device agnostic way of defining configuration. So under the hood, that's what we're using. So basically in New Central, you can define something like a radius server, an NTP server, for example, and then apply that configuration to AP switches and gateways, and we translate how to do that configuration. You just define the configuration you want to be applied to a device, no matter what type of a device it is, and we'll do the translation. So really, really powerful intent-based configuration management. And one last thing I just wanted to highlight was the fact that we're in the process of releasing third-party support as well into Aruba Central. So HPE have a product called OpsRamp, which is a very powerful multi-vendor systems observability solution. And what we're doing is we're leveraging that to provide third-party monitoring support within Aruba Central. So up until today, Aruba Central's only been able to monitor and manage Aruba infrastructure, but with the OpsRamp integration, you will be able to provide third-party observability. So whether that be Cisco or any other vendor switches, we'll be able to monitor those and give you the similar level of observability on the third-party infrastructures we've got on the Aruba infrastructure. So that's what I was going to cover in a brief time that I've got available, but that's a quick snapshot of what it is we're planning to do going forward in New Central. And as I say, that button is available now to customers, and if you want to request it, we can get access to it if it's not available on your server already.
Good morning, all. I hope you can see my screen. So basically what we would like to do is probably expand on what Chris has mentioned, but obviously from our perspective, Chris has gone from an Aruba perspective around deploying and looking at new Central. What we would like to try and do is give you an overview of how Central would work for you and where you are throughout that journey. So without further ado, if I just go through our view of this, any questions, please don't hesitate to either raise your hand, ask a question, or wait to the end. And as Greg alluded to, hopefully at the end, we will be able to answer some of the questions during our presentations, or we'll answer them at the end. So I guess really the starting point is, where are you on the journey of deploying Central into the cloud? Are you a current instant cluster user? Are you having a campus controller in HA, and also switches that would need to be deployed into Central if that is something on your journey? So depending on where you are, I guess the leading question in those scenarios are, can you migrate those existing configurations into Central? I will ask Will to come in and clarify on that, but obviously depending where you are, there are options that you need to consider depending on what version you're on and on your journey. So Will, can I ask, for your opinion, can you migrate all the above scenarios using existing configuration into Central?
Yeah, for the most part, you can import existing configurations and build them into your new sort of Central stroke AOS 10 config. So that's entirely possible. Yeah, I mean, it's I suppose Central's come a long way from where it was, in that once upon a time, controllers, or gateways as they're known now, did not figure within Central, but with the advent of AOS 10, we're one big unified OS now. So yeah, you can pretty much import existing configs into your new AOS 10 Central. Yeah, no problem.
Perfect, thank you. And then that leads into your configuration of your hardware. Sorry, not configuration, but your hardware makes and models. So there are subscriptions to bring on your devices, wireless, wired, onto the Central platform. And as it alludes to here, there are different flavors beyond your hardware of what features and benefits you may want to have from your subscription. So there are options of 3, 5, 7, 10-year subscriptions that you may want to consider when you're looking at the bigger picture from a deployment and cost models perspective. The bigger the tenure of the subscriptions you take, the better discount you would receive over that period. But there are some nuances within looking at those services. So reference to access points and switches. Will, can I ask you to provide further detail around the difference between the levels of support versus foundation and advanced that you'd get, plus that there are obviously some nuances around flavors of hardware that you may have may dictate what license you go for?
Yeah, sure. Access points are fairly simple. So there's one class of license, if you like, for an access point. That's split into foundation and advanced. But for all access points, from the entry level to the high end, there's basically one central license, either foundation or advanced. Switches are slightly different. So when you've got a situation where you have a complex switch, shall we say, a more comprehensive, feature-rich switch, then there's I think it's 3 classes of license. So entry level is the first class, intermediate, and then a complex switch. If you've got, there are some anomalies. So if you've got a 12-port switch, for instance, then that classes as the lowest kind of entry level type in terms of a license. And again, there are foundation and advanced licenses. So access points are simple, just an access point central license, either foundation or advanced. Switches are more complex, with several classes depending on how complex this switch is. Again, in 2 flavors, foundation and advanced. Now, I guess the important thing to say at this point is that foundation does pretty much what most people want to do. it's kind of a misnomer in some ways, for me at least, in that foundation implies basic. Having said that, it does pretty much everything you'd ever want to do. So the advanced are the icing on the cake with extra features, but the use case for those is much smaller. So yeah, foundation is essentially what I would say you want for most activities. Does that make sense?
No, it does, and I guess some of those features that you get from an advanced license is insights, coverage hole detection, transmit power optimization, improvement of RF resiliency by switching APs between switch stacks, multi-zoning, and live upgrades is the additions you get on the advanced over a foundation license.
Yeah, I mean, there's some real creative things in there. So if you've got, I mean, the one you picked on there, moving switches moving APs between switches in the stack. So if you've got a stack of switches and you've got this feature enabled, then Central will suggest that, perhaps it might be wise if you move these APs from this switch in the stack, say number 3 to number 2. So in other words, to spread the risk a little bit. So not all of your APs are connected to just 2 switches in that stack of 4 or whatever it is. So that's quite an innovative thing to do, and not something that I've ever seen before. So yeah, I mean, it's quite a useful feature. Do you absolutely need it? Probably not, but it's a nice to have.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Will. And I guess if we move on to what does Central offer, we've put some bullet points here across, I guess, the key parts of probably what Central can bring: visibility, central point of configuration, and alerting. So I guess visibility really is what do you have on your network in one pane of glass, so you can see your wireless and your wired. Central point of configuration. Ultimately, under that single pane of glass, you can have different configurations for different profiles, for different switches, and different access points, depending where you are. So there is an added benefit of, rather going into individual clusters that you may not have deployed in individual switches that may not be under Central, then this brings clarity for configuration, that there's no errors in deploying it. And then in turn, Central can alert on issues within the network, i.e. if you lose a switch, you're notified. If you lose a cab, you're notified if that stack goes down, and vice versa, number of APs connected to those switches, or if an individual AP does fail, you are getting those alerts. So Will, I wonder if you could just provide, I guess, from your perspective, any other overview on those main points?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's all about the view. Okay, that's really all I'm bothered about. So I can sit in front of the screen, I can look at the entire system, and I can drill into it. So I can see as little as I want, just a summary, or I can really get into what's going on. So, for instance, if someone says, "Oh, I'm having trouble connecting to the network," I can see if they're connected or not. So I can say, find Dave's connection or whatever, find Dave's client. I can then get a small graphic that shows Dave's client, whatever it is. I can see which access point he's connected to, which SSID. I can then see in turn which switch and port he's connected to. So it's all about the view, really, and it's hard to describe. It's best to sort of get a demonstration and see it in action. But it's for me, it's all about the view. So you just you've got all the information at your fingertips. You can see as little or as much as you like, and that's, for me, I'm fairly easy to please, to be honest. But that's the key thing for me.
Thank you, Will. And I guess I don't want to repeat what Chris has mentioned, but what Chris has demonstrated in his slides is really some of those key features. So AI-based insights for faster troubleshooting, integration of UXIs, advanced IDS and IPS threat defense, powerful monitoring, live chat, SASE on-prem for management services, and flexible consumption and financing models. So they are the key benefits above and beyond simplistic view, easy to aid your day-to-day running of your network. If Central can help you identify something faster and sooner and gives you less time to troubleshoot and to fix the fault, then there clearly is an investment that should help you along that journey into adopting Central to support not just you, but the larger team and in turn the organization to provide faster, better response and utilizing the network that you have today. And then I guess that leads quite nicely into automation with upgrades that you can, I believe you can, and I'll ask you to confirm. So with upgrades, I'm assuming you can pre-schedule upgrades to come along, but I don't believe you can necessarily get the latest and greatest. Is that correct?
You're in control of what gets deployed. So it doesn't just go away and start updating things, because that's the last thing you want, right? So in a live system, so Central will kind of give you a suggested release. So it'll say, okay, you're currently on this version. We think you should be on this version. And it's up to you if you accept that or not. You can just treat that as an advisory and not actually move at all, or you can adopt it and say, yeah, I'm happy with that. And you can schedule an upgrade to occur at a low usage time, like 2 a.m. in the morning or whatever. So for that, it's so much simpler than the old method of kind of having to go to individual switches and use TFTP or whatever to pull an image on, and that's they are ancient history now. So this is a much better graphical method for you to see at a glance where the infrastructure is in terms of the firmware releases and so on across switches, APs, and gateways, and it's a much easier thing to live with, frankly. And again, I'll go back to the view. You can't beat having the information at your fingertips.
Perfect. And I appreciate, with having an instant network via Central or controllers or gateways, then you would want automation to help you with RF parameters. So is that unknown interference that you may not see? Are you surrounding neighboring units or outlets or establishments that have their own wireless network? So that is conflicting with your RF parameters. What you don't want to do is have bad experience for your users roaming. So with automation, Aruba and Central will provide better performance by changing those parameters to give you the best box solution you can. So it's another added benefit that you would get now, but obviously you're getting that at a single pane of glass across your network from using Central. So then to deploy a wireless network, I guess there's a few things left to discuss really within the design and how you would want to deploy either your journey where you already have deployed Aruba Wireless, or not, where you might want to consider deploying a new model of AP. So there are a couple of things that you may have not heard of or seen, which we'll deep dive on in a second. But there's obviously an installer app, which makes things very simplistic for you. And in turn, there's things called zero touch deployment, which you can do back-at base, server room, etc., and then deploy these into the larger environment. So Will, could you just provide some context around that, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the installer app is quite innovative, I think, in that in Central you can assign a site to an installer, i.e. a chap in a van with all the kit, and effectively he can accept that invitation, and then the way it works is he installs an app on his smartphone. He goes to site, he installs the APs, he scans the APs, the serial numbers, using his phone. As soon as that AP is then added to the network and powered, that reaches out to Central for that customer, for that site, and the equipment is added live as the installer installs it. So that's Yeah, that's never been done before, as far as I know. So it's quite innovative, really, and works pretty well. Obviously, if you're not going down that route, there are other methods. So it's possible to have your kit pre-assigned to you as a customer, so that you can basically do zero-touch deployment, such that once you connect the equipment to the network and therefore the internet, the gear reaches out to the cloud, the Aruba cloud, recognizes your device and assigns that device to your Aruba Central instance for that site. So it's things have moved on a lot. So you can actually get a lot done with far less effort than was once the case.
Perfect, thank you. And then for the last two, really, the automation and the installer app in Zero Touch, KHIPU can provide services to do the implementation for that. So we can set up the central for you, help set up the profiles that are required to run your current configuration, or create new profiles based on known information. So we can obviously deploy it, let it listen, make the recommendation changes, so you can have different profiles for different areas. You can have different SSIDs come on at different times if required, just to make it very simplistic and have great housekeeping. So we can support, KHIPU can support you on your journey, either via doing upgrades out of hours under a support contract, or we can help with the deployment from the initial understanding of your project, or at the latter end where you just want some advice. We can help with assistance delivering any deployment around Central. I hope that's given you a fairly good overview and insight with what Chris has shown you on slides and our thought process around deploying Central to cloud management and migration. So if there are any questions, if you could just hold off for a second, because I do have another slide, which, as Greg alluded to at the beginning, this has come from CSSD, which is one of my customers who has deployed wired and wireless last year, and they are using Central for their visibility of their network. So, well, the next slide, basically, I won't read through it, but there were some key points I will mention. Bear with. So these are their words. So they've come up with those 4 clear headings: clear management dashboard, alerting, device and client monitoring, and easy setup and configuration. So they have come across with what they think the key benefits are. So if there was a conversation that you wanted to have with CSSD around them actively using Central, then they are willing to have a conversation with you if that's something you wish to do. But obviously, please read through those high-level notes that Charles has shared with us.
Yes. So when I was looking through this list, so a couple of things that sort of jumped out at me. One was around, can we manage, having a single dashboard to look at the wired and wireless infrastructure and what we can do for managing switches as well as Wi-Fi. So just to reiterate, Aruba Central today will manage both your instant APs, your AOSS, and your CX switching. So you've got a single dashboard no matter where anyone's connecting to the network. In the new Central, we'll also be able to manage, and actually with in Classic Central today, we can also manage AOS 10. So you are AOS 10 architecture as well. So more when you've got APs and gateways, etc., that can all be managed with Aruba Central. What we can do with switch management and monitoring and troubleshooting is really comprehensive in the existing Central. We take it to a new level in New Central. It's very, if you get a demo of New Central, you'll see that what we can do to manage your APs and switches and gateways, the depth that we can go to is really consistent, and the way we do that is really consistent across the different device families. Whereas today it's slightly different between the way we do things, but so we're taking it to the next level in the new version. But today you can manage those devices consistently, both wired and wireless.
Thank you, Chris. I guess there are, if I just run through some of the questions, and then I believe we've probably covered most, but if I just read them out anyway, and then if anything we haven't covered off, we can do so. I guess having cited real-time information relating to user experience, I believe Chris.
Yeah, that's a good one to just emphasize. So the new Central is much more real-time than Classic Central. Classic Central is pretty real-time for reacting to clients onboarding, etc., whether they're disconnected. So that sort of information is pretty live. It's even more live in New Central. The amount of time it's sort of we take between a client joining the network and us reflecting it in our unified client view, it is seconds from that perspective. And the other thing that we're doing that's in that question is the fact that user experience. In Classic Central, we're looking at something sort of that's a bit abstract. It's like the health of their connection, and we're looking at various Wi-Fi metrics and stuff to look at that. In New Central, we're looking at the deep packet inspection that we got on the APs, and we're now leveraging on the CX switching as well. It's giving us visibility into the application and application performance. So we can now look at the user's application experience as well in Aruba Central. And whether that's coming from the telemetry from the access points and switches, or also from UXI as well.
I guess there's another question that probably leads quite nicely into what you're alluding to there, Chris. It says finding network dropouts. Obviously, using that timeline, if you have a note of a time or of an experience of an issue, you can go back in time and investigate what that is. So I'm hoping
absolutely
answer that question, that you would have to know of the event to go back and historically look at that, but then you would find what that potential issue is depending on the scenario that it sits in.
Actually, on that point, there's a good point. One of the insights we've got too is around coverage holes. So we'll look at the client experience as they're roaming around a site, and we can identify areas of the site or building on the floor plan where clients are having poor experience, and you probably need to deploy another AP. So we'll look at coverage hole as well. And another new feature that's just dropped in our latest sprints is looking at roaming experience over a period of time. So again, if you've got clients, a particular client that's sort of dropping in and out, you can look at their roaming experience with the roaming timeline in a very nice graphical way. So there's a lot of cool stuff we're doing there.
Perfect. There's a couple of questions around segmentation as well, Chris. I don't know if you can provide any further clarity. Appreciate it's quite an overarching comment.
Yeah, I mean, but from a segmentation perspective, I mean, you can obviously configure VLANs, etc., from to segment your network from Aruba Central. Aruba obviously have something that we've talked about for a long period of time now called dynamic segmentation and colorless ports. So basically, colorless ports is really around being able to define a profile that's associated with the user or type of device, and then the access port or where the device is connecting to the network will be automatically configured based on the type of device or the user that is connected. So it dynamically configures the network, both to secure access, segment the network, but also to automate your moves, adds, and changes.
Okay, and I think the last one really that sticks out that we may have not covered in too much degree is security in the hybrid and cloud-driven environment.
So I mean, I talked a bit in my introduction of some of the stuff we're doing around security from a IoT perspective. Also within Central, we've got something called Cloud Auth. So we can it's basically our authentication engine in the cloud. So you authenticate users and devices onto the network and associate what policies they can be assigned, and policies can be based on what they're accessing and where they're accessing from, for example. That's all included as part of Aruba Central. And then the other piece of this that's well worth looking at that's not part of Aruba Central is Aruba's Access solution, or we bought a company recently called Access that provides a very comprehensive SSE, secure as edge solution, where basically you can define policies that can very granularly control and enforce zero trust. So, traditionally we'll use things like VPNs to access the company network, but when you get on a VPN, you can then normally just access anything. Once you're in, you're on. But with zero trust, and what we can do with Access is the fact that we can set policies up so that when I connect to the network, I'm only allowed to connect to the systems and applications that the policy's been defined for me to access. And that can be those policies can be consistently applied based on whether I'm accessing from a coffee shop or from the office. And we've got secure web gateways and cloud security brokers as part of that solution as well. So well worth having a conversation with the KHIPU team about that if that's something you're interested in.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that, Chris. I think that pretty much covers off a lot of the questions that have been answered during and what we've just covered off now. So thank you very much.